Nothing on email.
All right. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Gray,
Here.
trustee Jackson Miller,
Here.
trustee Donnelly,
Present.
trustee Edmondson,
Present.
and trustee Dickinson is not quite around.
All right. The board is convening to close session.
Yes.
All right, welcome everybody to our board meeting. I'd like to call open session to order. May we have our pledge leader?
I would like to introduce Kiyomi Dunlap for representing New Brighton Middle School to lead tonight's pledge. So come on out.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Hold on, we're gonna stand up real quick.
Let's give it the.
please do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice and justice for all. Okay. Staff, students, parents, and the community help ensure that each child develops the skills and character necessary for lifelong achievement and responsible citizenship in a diverse world.
All right, thank you.
Oh, no way.
That was the fun part.
So I just want to first thank you for allowing us to be the New Brighton Middle School to be the first a school that's able to bring a pledge leader to our board meeting. And so this is Kiyomi Dunlap, and she is an outstanding 8th grade student. She has a lot to share about herself. And so you're going to ask her a ton of questions, I know, but please ask her about softball and all of her achievements in softball. She's done a lot of great things. She's gone really far in lots of competitions, and she has some high hopes for softball in her future. So just throwing that out there. All right, Kiyomi, she's all yours.
Yeah.
We're gonna ask you some questions.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Hi, Kiyomi. My name is Robert. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I have something, if it's okay with you, I'd like to read this out, so it'll be out in the ether for everybody. The author was fantastic, by the way, of this. My name is Kiyomi Dunlap, and I am 13 years old. I play for the New Brighton softball and soccer team. I've had straight A's since the 6th grade so far. I also play for a competitive softball team outside of school called the Cabrillo Crushers.
Oh, yeah.
I am the starting pitcher and first baseman.
Wow, yeah.
And we just got back from nationals in Salem, Oregon. We were also the first team in the organization ever to win the NorCal championships. Wow. I used to play outside of school club soccer, but didn't play this summer because we had too much going on with softball. My family and I are huge fans of the wilderness and like camping and hunting a lot. In the future, I would really like to go to Stanford and play softball in college. I have not decided what I want my profession to be yet. And I would note that on the bottom of this is a softball pitcher, the honor roll, and a tent.
Oh, yeah.
In a wilderness setting, so it's very appropriate. Love it. If you don't mind, I'll go first. I know there's a lot of questions going around, but what do you like to hunt, and what do you hunt with? How is that incorporated into your life?
My family on my dad's side used to go camping a lot because they grew up in a more country area, and we like going hunting by Pleasant Hill for pheasant. And my sister lives up in Boulder Creek, and she has turkeys on her property, and we go hunting turkey season there, and I got my first turkey last year.
Fantastic. I know where I'm going for Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you. Glad you're here representing New Brighton.
Softball. Tell us about softball. I mean, so Cabrillo, you were on the team with Cabrillo Crushers, and they're the first team to take NorCal championships, right? Okay. Wow. Tell me all about it.
I played baseball until like 2 summers ago. I transitioned to softball, and since then we won. Last summer we went to NorCal's and what was it?
NorCal championships.
We went to NorCal championships, and there's like 47 teams there, and we got first place.
Wow.
And to get to NorCal's, you have to win at least 1 tournament, and before that we won 4.
Yeah.
And then when we won NorCal's, we were qualified to go to Salem, Oregon. And when we went to Salem, we got 8th place. And then we came here, and then a couple of days later, school started.
That sounds incredible.
Busy.
You know, in Salem, you had teams from other states, right?
There's teams from Hawaii, and there's most of them were in California. There were a couple out of California. Some were like in Oregon, their homes, and then there's some from like San Diego and Goleta and El Rio. We played pretty well. We won 5 and lost 2, and we got eliminated. But we did pretty well out of 47 teams around that. We got 8th place.
Wow, that's great. Now, what's the speed of your pitch? Have you done that yet?
It
Faster than you can.
I know, yeah.
It ranges from maybe 55 to like 60 on a good day.
Wow.
Yeah. There you go.
Get ready to
That's
Stanford.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think
All right.
That is so cool.
That's awesome. I have a question, and maybe it could be advice for other New Brighton students or future New Brighton students. You're obviously a very talented and hardworking athlete, and also a talented and hardworking student. So how do you balance your after-school activities and all the work you must put into softball and then your other interests and getting schoolwork done and able to maintain, your grades and your coursework? How do you find that balance?
I have schedules, so usually things are given to us on Mondays or Tuesdays and then on Friday. I have softball on Tuesdays, Mondays, and Thursdays. And so I plan to get most of my homework done on Wednesday. That's the day I make lots of room and I finish all my homework. And I focus really hard in flex class to get it all done.
Smart.
And I know if I do it in the earlier days of the week, then I can have fun on the weekends.
Really? Love that. And
Yeah.
and you're even here on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
so thank you.
Incredible. I'm glad you're
Yeah.
here.
I think you might have played baseball with my son back.
Yeah.
I remember you. You were great then. Tell me a little bit about camping. Where are some of your favorite places to go camping?
It's we haven't gone camping in a while. It's kind of hard to remember the names of
Yeah.
a lot of places. What's the one that we go to a lot?
Spicer Reservoir, Shasta.
We go there. We usually go for the lake and go fishing with my grandpa, and then sometimes we go camping, but sometimes we stay in a motel. Sometimes we stay in a cabin. It all depends like how long we're staying or where we are. But I find camping really fun, and it's fun to get out in the wilderness and stuff.
Yeah, we really enjoy that as our family too. So. Yeah, awesome. It's nice to see you, Kelly.
Yeah.
I was curious about your favorite subject at New Brighton. What's your area of interest?
I like history. Last year was nice to learn about history and language arts the most.
Oh, nice. And then you're interested in Stanford?
Yeah.
Nice choice.
Yeah. I can say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good goal.
Well, thank you so much for being our pledge leader. We have fun parting gifts and a certificate, and we'd love to get a photo with you. That's okay. Do you want to come up and choose
Have
something?
you done any clinics with Stanford softball?
Not yet. Yet, like 16.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like,
Just got back from University of Oregon, touring the facilities.
Really?
What's the plan for Division I?
Yeah,
Wow.
No, their gym is amazing. I hear.
Did you,
You're not proud at all,
Yeah.
are you?
Did you go to the Women's Softball Hall of Fame? My sister-in-law is the first one to, play on the softball team.
I wish we would have,
Yeah.
we did not, we barely did that because of, time constraints.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, they're cool. They're fun.
Thank you very much.
They're awesome.
No, you made our night.
Yeah.
I want to go home.
Great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Andy,
I'll be excited on it.
Yeah. That just makes me think about
Thank you.
french fries, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Always a highlight of the night. Yeah. Moving on to 3B, I would like to pull out of consent item 4I, the governance calendar. If we made that switch, do I have an adoption of the agenda?
I'll make the motion to put out the agenda.
All right, a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Report out of closed session. We have nothing to report. Public communications. Didn't we just do that?
We did agenda, but we didn't do consent agenda.
Oh. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item 4I?
I'll raise the motion to approve the consent agenda, removing item 4I.
Thank you.
I'll
A
second
second.
you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you for that. Moving on to public communications. I think we start with the room and then we move to email. So we have Marilyn Garrett. And I read this, correct?
Yeah.
And I'll just read this before you start. Members of the audience are welcome to address the Board of Trustees during public communications regarding items not listed on this agenda. For items not listed on the agenda, we request that you fill out a form and sign in. Thank you for doing that. 3 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. The trustees cannot take action on these matters unless such matters are placed on a future agenda, according to law. If the item is on the agenda, you will have the opportunity to speak at the time of the agenda item is discussed. Please address the board president. These proceedings are video recorded. Thank you.
Okay, Marilyn Garrett, I'm a retired teacher, and I want to see healthy conditions in which children and staff can be educated. And I'll tell you, I see people with cell phones on them that are pulsing microwave radiation. It's very disturbing because I've read a lot of the science where cancer develops around these sites. And I think I've given you considerable literature before. Today, I want to address the vaccine issue. And I invited you last time to hear the author, The Unfortunate Truth About Vaccines, Exposing the Vaccine Orthodoxy by Leon Canarot. This book can be ordered through Amazon. The second edition is out. And I will just read a little bit of it. It's well worth the read. And you know, when there's a problem, even if something's very popular and you learn, wait a minute here, this is harmful, you need to step back and reevaluate whether it's popular or what. It's a problem. So this is called COVID-19 hysteria. A lie doesn't become truth, wrong doesn't become right, and evil doesn't become good just because it's accepted by a majority. That's a quote from Booker T. Washington. Introduction: the recent hysteria created in the media regarding SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19, and now we've got Mpox, is yet another example of the manufactured hysteria that was covered in part 7 of the book. In the groundbreaking book, Virus Mania, the authors noted that scientists have been unable to isolate viruses from other nanoparticles observed under electronic magnification. When I first read this, I was so surprised. That's my comment. They contend that all of these assumed viruses have never been properly isolated from other genetic fragments microscopically, and therefore unable to show that viruses are in fact the causative agents of these diseases. As previously noted, they point to the use of pharmaceuticals, illegal drugs, pesticides, heavy metals, pollution, and other factors that have been shown to cause diseases inappropriately labeled as viruses. An in-depth discussion of the controversy
seconds.
regarding the existence of viruses is beyond the scope of this book. One thing, nevertheless, is abundantly clear. The COVID-19 vaccines have had a disastrous effect on people. This will become more evident as we explore the many issues raised by the vaccine in this section.
Thank you so much for sharing this.
Yes.
That's
and I
the
would
3
like to
minutes.
leave you with literature. What we know about the shots, and that's a concise, substantiated one. And the last one, vaccine doses for children over the years.
All right, thank you.
That is so interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment? Anything from email?
Nothing on email.
All right. Moving on to standing reports. Superintendent, would you like to start?
Yeah, since I get to address the opening days and weeks of school, I don't have much to add in this section. I will just say a reminder that back to school season is kicking off tomorrow night with New Brighton. And then the next couple of weeks after that, we'll hit our elementary schools. So looking forward to that. That's all for me.
All right, and those first days are going to be the highlight of these updates, so I will limit mine to just a few. The first, I'll just invite the board, if you have a few minutes, to go drive down Park Avenue, just past Washburn. You'll see our beautification partner project with the city of Capitola is being installed currently. So we have our last tile panels that are student individual tiles that will be installed on Monday. What you'll see so far is you'll see 4 scenes of the city of Capitola as imagined by our school students in our schools. And so there's one panel of a scene for each of our schools in our district, and I think it's looking great. Roy Segura has done a really great job, along with Steve Cartwright, in doing the application of the tiles or the installation of the tiles up until this point. There'll be some painting in the background and some signage that will follow that, and we'll plan on a nice opening event so that you can all see it when it's complete, but it's really coming along nicely, and wanted you to know that. Just one other update. I mean, other than great teaching and learning is going on this first couple of weeks of school, I'm seeing such dynamic classrooms. But our principals are working very hard. And so we did have our first principals leaders for learning professional development yesterday afternoon. We did classroom observations at New Brighton. We observed the experience of English learner focal students in each of the selected classrooms. And we went through an observation tool to really study the experience. And as the board knows, this has been a really deep commitment that we've had to really understanding how our students are doing in school, how they are acting in school, how they're feeling in school. And this gets us closer to really understanding how to serve them better. So we did our first event of that nature this past week, and I'm feeling very excited about the synergy of the team. It's nice to have Craig back. It's the team that exists is so wonderful, and having Melissa and Candace back as professionals from the County Office of Education to take us to this next level is really exciting. Scott and Carissa also participate with me, which just adds to I think that level of commitment that we all have to ensuring that the students' experiences. That's it. Thank you.
Business side of the house, been working on closing the books, as well as, getting the Main Street Library up and running. We had a couple hiccups, but we're making sure we stay on it. We're getting ready to order all the shelving. We already have carpet ordered, paint's done, sheetrock, of course, since we painted, has already been replaced and so forth. So it's coming along, and we're excited to see the outcome, although, one little catastrophe means that there's something great coming. So that's the way we're looking at it. We're going to stay positive. So excited about that.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to 6B, items from CSEA. Do we have any
Yeah, Beatrice is here tonight.
news?
Did you have anything to share from CSEA?
Just, do I have to go in there?
No, you can do whatever's comfortable for you.
Yes.
When I ask you about your hobbies, your favorite sport.
I just want to thank you for the raise that we got in the last 2 years and the extra day off for this year, the business necessity day. Just thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Since not all these folks know you, would you tell us what you do at Main Street?
Yes, sorry, my name is Beatriz Ocaranza. I work at Main Street Elementary. For 3 years, I was a yard supervisor. This is my 3rd year being in TK. And I love it.
She's amazing. I had to sub in TK once and it would have been really bad if she hadn't.
Anything you want to
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're very glad you're here.
Nice to meet you, Beatrice.
All right, moving on to SEA.
I did not get any notifications or anything, but nobody's here tonight from SEA, but
All right.
they're all busy making their lesson plans.
Yes. We wish them a relaxing evening. Moving on to items from trustees.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing to report. Nothing to report.
I'll just say, and I saw half of them there, but the back to
Yes.
school breakfast that Scott hosted, I thought was absolutely amazing. I thought it was a great turnout. I thought the teachers were so positive and energized and motivated. Like everybody was just drinking the Kool-Aid, you know, that morning. The food was great. It was a great spread with all sorts of different breakfast burritos and just the work and effort that you guys put in it to make the staff feel comfortable and to be welcomed on that first day coming back to school and start off everything with a real positive motivation and all that energy. It was wonderful to be a part of. I felt like a great little cog in this whole team and environment that you guys put together. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for being there.
So I just want to say thank you to everybody for putting your name in the elections process to continue to take that on in your community service. So congratulations to your appointments.
You as well.
Thank you.
Saves the district money. 'Cause
Yes.
one hasn't done it like.
It does save the district money, so we like that. And then I would like to acknowledge Scott and your team for all your efforts on the bond. This kind of the legwork of putting that on the ballot, the rebuttal, how do we say? So thank you so much for that.
acknowledging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's pitching in.
Yes. All right, moving on to 7A, discussion of the LCAP.
Okay, well, thank you. As the board knows, typically the LCAP update has to do with one specific goal and action area. But sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's just about where we are in terms of the LCAP process. So this summer, the school board of trustees got to take a look at our new annual plan and approve the plan. It goes from our team to the County Office of Education, and they look at it through a different lens just to say, like, is it compliant? That are all the boxes checked? Do we are we ensuring that the right kids are being served by the right funding sources and things like that? And so this particular year, Alice and I were contacted and the county office, and we have just a couple minor things that we would like to talk to you about. And when I say minor, I'm saying minor, and we love that word minor because they had lots of conversations with lots of districts that may not have been so. But I just wanted we wanted the board to know that there were a couple of areas on our LCAP where there was 2 boxes checked, meaning that it was a maintenance goal or it was like a new goal. It can't be both. And so the funny thing is it's a goal that we've had in the past that we're continuing with some nuances, and we could have checked either one, we checked both because we're like, well, it's kind of both. Well, you can't do that. So some of the changes are as small as that. And one of the changes is just the way that we've worded how a service is going to happen. And then there's another section where we just really need to take a look at, is this the right funding source for this? But those are the three areas that we'll be bringing back to the board the next time we meet. You'll approve it again. We'll ask you to approve it again, but it won't make a lot of difference in terms of the bottom line. Same amount of budgeted money, same goals that we have for kids, all of that stuff maintains itself the same way. But we are so happy to have the County Office of Education to look at our documents to make sure that we're doing the right things for kids. And so whenever we get those calls that they, we want to meet with you, we go. But then when we actually meet with them, we know their purpose and we know the importance of their work with us. So just giving you that update so that you know what to expect the next time.
Okay. Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, thanks for that. Nothing on email. Thank you. 7B, opening day enrollment.
Right, so this is definitely the item that's been on the top of our mind. And I'm gonna say it like this, it's the ultimate good news, bad news scenario. So everybody has their druthers on which order that should go in. I'm gonna start with the good news. So the good news is some of what's already been mentioned, like the kickoff and all the work that goes into that. And just in our very small district, everybody has to pull a lot of weight to make the beginning of the year successful, both in the affect and the effect. And obviously, our administrative team will start with that. Much like you all, we're pretty stable. We had, as was mentioned earlier, Craig Broadhurst came back on. That was the only change in our administrative team across the whole district. And that includes principals and child nutrition services and IT. And so having that stable team really kind of lets you hit the ground running. So I'm very thankful for that. And then everything that happens in advance of the school year, on that, there's a lot of work being done. I'm going to mention a couple, always at the risk of forgetting somebody, but I'm going to mention a couple departments, especially that's IT. So George and his mighty team of three total, including him, revamped the entire network. Beginning at the end of last year, but a lot of work being done over the summer. And that is no small task. And we were all up and running, ready to go to start the school year with greater reliability and consistency with our network, which is going to make for better learning. And one specific thing when we get to testing, everybody's testing at the same time, greater reliability of our network. So that takes a lot of work, not to mention getting all of the teachers, they collect all of the teachers' laptops, refresh them, update the software, get them back in a timely manner because teachers work over the summer, as we know, and they want them back. And they're just so accommodating and customer service oriented. And then in addition, this big network project. So behind the scenes, but so important. And then facilities, Steve's team, John and Kian, the whole team, Craig for HVAC, getting the whole district ready is typically a big undertaking. And of course, as you know, we had one kind of major faux pas with the Main Street Library. And of course, that redirected a lot of time and resources and everything. And the team responded to it as we've expressed to you. And it's going to come out better than ever. It is truly going to be a lemonade out of lemon scenario. And so, and then everything else to get the classrooms looking good and the campuses looking good. And then, of course, our teachers and staff on site, getting everything welcoming for our students and families that first day of school. It was amazing. All of us from cabinet, including Jen, go out to school sites to lend a helping hand at the beginning of the school day on the first day of school and at dismissal. And so I was at Santa Cruz Gardens and it was very smooth. I had very little to do. I think they put me on the playground just because they had to put me somewhere. But that's a good sign. It wasn't like, chaotic where there was things not being done already. So we were all very impressed with the beginning of the school year. And it's just such a joy, it's moving on to a different grade level or in some instances starting school. And all of that joy and everything that a family should experience with their children was in place because of the very hardworking staff in this district. That's good news. in order to make sure that we're not painting things with rose-colored glasses. The bad news is enrollment. And so we are continuing a trajectory now, a 5-year streak, if you can look at it like that, of declining enrollment. Of course, as you know, ADA based, enrollment and the percentage of attendance of that enrollment is the financial lifeblood of the district. And so therefore it's very concerning. We have been able to address it over the years through all the least intrusive ways, right? So capitalize on attrition. So not ever having to do layoffs or anything, because just when someone retires or leaves, we try to capitalize on that so that nobody that wants to work here is forced not to work here. During COVID years and the years thereafter, there was a lot of one-time funds. So that's really cushioned the blow of this declining enrollment. But of course, many of those funds have run out or are running out. And so that cushion is getting less and less of a cushion. So it's concerning, and it's going to be something that we really have to take to our fiscal prioritization team to look at years down the road, steps we can make to try to mitigate the impact of declining enrollment. And then this year, we're also working with School Services of California, which is a very well-respected, well-established agency in the state that works with districts on fiscal issues. And in this case, we think we're being proactive, not waiting until it's dire, and wanting to be objective. It's very hard for me. I've been here 9 years to always see things objectively, and so we need to bring what we know about, the heart and internal workings of the district, but then we also want to weigh it against an objective point of view and look at any steps that we should be considering and bringing to the board for consideration. So I want you to know that we're aware of declining enrollment. We're being very open about it. We're not trying to look at it with rose-colored glasses, and we're addressing it in the most proactive, objective way we can. And we'll be including you in those discussions, as well as the fiscal prioritization team. We look at the numbers. It's there's a couple different ways to look at it. The number of students, if you went around on the day of school where we counted this, on the 6th day of school, August 15th, and all the students were there and you just counted heads, you would have counted 1,514 heads. And so that is one way to look at how many students are in your district, right? But nothing can ever be easy, right? So there's kind of a couple layers after that. And I always like to be very careful. So when I talk about ADA generating students, I'm in no way differentiating the heart and soul that we put into the education of any student. But from a fiscal perspective, a small number of those students do not generate ADA for a variety of reasons. And so our SDC preschool students are in that category where we serve them, even though they are not of school age yet. And the early start TK students. And so this is the last year that there's a window of early start TK students. So districts had the choice to either cut off enrollment on June 2nd, so that a student's birthday had to occur by June 2nd. We went ahead and went all the way into the beginning of September. And so those have become kind of referred to as summer babies. And so those are the kids born after June 2nd. So essentially you can say students who, had birthdays in June, July, and August. So since we started in early August, there were 3-year-olds in those classrooms this year, right? So that's always the way that kind of paints the most picture for me. I bet you know some of those 3-year-olds.
Oh my goodness.
They're so sweet now. And so that was a mindful decision. Some districts did, some districts didn't. And we've talked to you about this when we early implemented the expanded TK, is that we did because we think the long-term benefit is better. Obviously, it's better for the student and the family to have the student in school, get acclimated to school, hit the ground running even more in kindergarten and first grade, right? And we also think there's a greater chance they'll stay with us for the long term. So, some might look at it as a short term, you have these, and there's 17 of those students in our district, 17 of the TK students. And so you educated these 17 students for free. Yes, but we think it's a 10-year commitment down to their 8th grade potentially. So just so you know the rationale there. But you kind of take those SDC preschool students, of which there are 5, and then the 17 early start TK students. And so if you look at a category of what you would call ADA generating students, that puts us under 1,500, the 1,492. I can tell you that since then we've gained 3 students, so that number is up to 1,495. So that's how closely we watch it. You can see on the memo the list of students from TK all the way through 8th grade. In the cohort that are coming through. Whenever we see that our largest cohort is 8th grade, it's great that they're here now. It's concerning projecting into the future, right? Because those students won't be with us next year. And then we always look at how many new registrations do we have coming in to replace those students. And that's TK, some K, students who come in from other areas relocating into other grades, of course. And then another factor is no-shows. And so if I was in your seats, I always try to think of like, what would I be wondering if I was in your seat? Is like, okay, we know, we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 plus new registered students over the course of into last year in summer. And we did registration all the way through summer. Jen was there taking it at the district office for every school site. So we leave no stone unturned, and trying to maximize enrollment, especially new registration. So why is the gap, of declining enrollment what it is, and why is it that? I think that's what I'd be asking your city. So I'm going to share with you some items that I didn't have ready, and I apologize for that at the time, but I'm going to share it, and then anybody in the audience, I have copies too, of how many no-shows there were and why, as best as we can. And I want to give big credit to our office staff, our office managers, and administrative assistants, because I asked for their help on this. I can go into our system, and then I can go into the state system and find out some information. But then they know all the backstories.
Yeah.
Oh, that kid did this because their family, it's amazing the granular level that they know about our families in the startup. So shout out to all the office staff out there. So the first thing I'm going to pass to you is how many no-shows there were. And one definition of no-show, just for a preface, there were some students who started registration for TK, let's say, or kindergarten as their first year of school. So they were new to our district, started registration, maybe even finished it, but didn't end up coming. We're not counting those in this particular part because they never were in our school. So really what I wanted to focus on here, and I can tell you of those students, there were 12 of those students. They started enrollment, never finished, and never came to our school. But those are families are in flux at that time, and it's a little bit harder to track. What I was really wanting to inform you on is students who had been in our schools. We expect them to roll to the next grade level. We kind of have to bake them in to projections, even though we know there'll be some new shows. We really don't know how many. So we expected them to come, roll over to the next grade level, and then they didn't show up. That's the group that I'm focusing on, not new registrations that never came to fruition. So just a little definition of the no-show. So pass one of those to each one of you. And then, well, I'll just pass those down. And then if anybody in the public puts one, if you want to put one at the table for the record. And again, I apologize, I didn't get this to you in advance. It kind of, as I was thinking about it, I was like, these are the questions that we'll want to focus on. So there were 60 no-shows for starting the school year. And so let's take a look at, I kind of put them into 4 buckets. The first bucket was relocation. They just moved somewhere and said they could have thought our schools were the greatest schools on planet Earth, but they moved somewhere and they're not going to go to our schools, right? So not that any of these are like cause and effect because of the quality of our schools, but that question kind of is impossible not to let cross your mind, right? Does any of this have to do with the quality of our schools? Obviously, relocation, no. Then there were 15 students who didn't relocate, but went to a different public school district, local public school district, right? And so just to differentiate between those two, we might have a family who switched from our district to Pajaro Valley because the family moved to Corralitos and is going to Bradley School. That family we counted as relocation. but we might have a family that is in our district, never moved and chose to go to Pajaro Valley. We counted those as moving to a different school district, not a relocation. Hopefully that's.
Is there any data on why?
There is, yeah. Well, I'll give some data on where and a little more anecdotal on why. The why we don't have as much data on. But some anecdotal thoughts. 12 went to charter schools in the area, and 8 went to privates. So I thought that data would be helpful. But some folks have different versions, like, oh, they're all going to privates, or they're all going such and such, right? And it's really a smattering. But about 42% relocated, about 25% of the no-shows went to public school district other than ours locally. About 20% went to a local charter, and about 13% went to a private.
Do you have this data for what grade level?
I do. I don't have it here for you tonight, but I can include that next layer in the Friday update.
Yeah, I would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Because
So mostly
I would imagine middle school.
middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Not all, but most. And then I think you'll especially see that in this next layer that I'll pass out. So a question you might have after that is, where did they go specifically? So I can give you some data on that. Yep. But if you're curious where our families moved to, it's actually I think it was a pretty amazing list of really cool places. So here's these are the places our families relocated to. 2 went to Los Angeles, and sometimes when there's 2, that means it was siblings, right? So 2 went to Los Angeles. 1 went out of the country, and I have that as generic because I don't know, I was unable to ascertain where out of the country, but then 2 out of the country to Bulgaria. Family there, obviously. 1 to San Jose, 1 to Corralitos, mentioned earlier, 2 to Boulder Creek, 1 to Rockland, Ohio, 1 to Washington State, 1 to Penn Valley, which is in Nevada County in California, 2 to Brazil, 1 to Scotts Valley, 1 to Laguna Niguel, 2 to Watsonville, 1 to Roseville, 2 in Santa Cruz, Live Oak area, 2 to La Jolla, and 2 to Bonnie Doon. I thought that was quite a list for 25 kids all over the place. So those attending another public local school district, of those 15, 1 went to SL San Lorenzo Valley, 5 to Pajaro Valley, obviously close by, 4 to Santa Cruz City Schools, 1 to Scotts Valley, 2 to Live Oak School District, 1 to Redwood Middle School, which is in Saratoga. I think it's a Union Elementary School District like ours, and 1 to Pacific up there in Davenport. Well, they have a great independent study and program, and I think they have about, they're very small. I'll just say that. 12 went to charters. You can see the majority of those were PCS, Pacific Collegiate School. And so they start at 7th grade. And so obviously all 10 of those are middle schoolers. And then 1 each to San Lorenzo Valley Charter and Tierra Pacifica School. And then 8 of these no-shows went to private school, 3 to Twin Lakes, 2 to Monte Vista, 2 to Kirby, and 1 to Santa Cruz Montessori. And I think, the reasons are all across the board. Obviously relocation, kind of take that off the board. Those families have to live and do what they do. All across the board. So I can give some specific examples of families that came to our district from the district they went back to, like they had been in Pajaro Valley for one reason or another, asked for a transfer here, home district was in Pajaro Valley, and decided to go back. And I mean, I had that with my own students. My wife taught at Bradley School in Pajaro Valley, so she went there. And then when it came time to go for 6th grade, I wanted her to come to New Brighton, right? And so I think that is like one example of like the individuality of many of these choices. I think, the one that stands out obviously is 10 students going to Pacific Collegiate. And I think they tend to attract very academically oriented students. I think New Brighton is very academically oriented too, but they have a, you know, a specific emphasis on that. So I think as many reasons there are that families make decisions are baked into there. And then you kind of have the one that stands out with PCS. So was a great start to the school year in every possible way, except we would like to see more students. And I wanted you to have a concept of where some of those students came back. Obviously, if all of those students came back, we wouldn't be talking, we'd be saying we broke the streak. But families make decisions, families have to move, we all understand that. You know, and I think the question, you know, it's impossible to cross your mind, is it about the quality of our schools ever? I think if another superintendent in another local district is giving this similar report, there's going to be students who came this way too, right? And it's just like later in the year when we give you that inter-district transfer report, there's a million reasons why families choose to come and go. Perhaps sometimes it is the quality or their perception of the quality, but perhaps it's, you know, a million other reasons too. And that transfer report gives a little bit more detail about that. But it was a great opening of the school year, and I'd be glad to answer any of your questions.
Are there any like surveys that go to these families to get any information?
We have not done exit surveys or anything. So the short answer, no, that's not saying we couldn't do it in the future.
Okay. And I will say, I am actually one of the PCS families, but my son came back, so we're net neutral. But I'd be happy to talk at some point. Now's not the right time about why we, you know, did that for each kid. So,
okay. Yeah,
that
would be a great case study. I'd love to chat with you about it.
yeah.
And I bet schools across the county have that same incident where all the schools have kids applying to PCS. Some get in, some try it out. It works for some, it doesn't work for
I
others.
think
They come
everybody's on
back.
the waiting list.
Yeah, it's like the whole county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to echo her first statement. I think it'd be a valuable tool to do some sort of an exit questionnaire or something like that.
Sure.
And try to figure out what the perception is for those kids or something like that, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if that can help us do a better job, you know.
It can only help.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it would be something that obviously we would take the data and it would be meaningful. It would be hard to have it be comprehensive because some families just leave and we don't hear from them again, besides when the human request comes in, you know, but any data will help us. Right.
As we continue talking about this in the future, I'm curious if we could ever get a number for the Santa Cruz County, like our children leaving our county, our children leaving our Capitola SoCal area. Is there just less kids in this area?
Well,
that would be an interesting number to compare.
Yeah, so versus not, so I think what I hear you saying is differentiating between students and children. So our like one thing I can tell you is like within the last 5 or 6 years, the student enrollment in the county wide has gone from about 40,000 to 37,000. So that's about a 3,000 student dip.
Yeah.
Now our decline has been steeper. We have been hit as hard, if not harder than any district. And so I think maybe baked into your question though was, you know, are those are public school students? Are they going to privates? Like that sort of thing across the county?
Or is it just that there's less families in our community?
So I think on general knowledge, you know, like this is not a vetted data answer to that question. I think I can say definitely yes, right? You know, I think, you know, not to make it as an excuse, but the cost of living in the area and the county as a whole is an impact to young families. And then in our area, I would say especially. But I think the other thing to answer it with a more analytical lens is as part of our work with School Services of California, I've asked Allison to commission a demographic study so we can have up to the moment data on that sort of thing. So we'll be bringing that to the board as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Have we engaged School Services of California? Have we started working with them?
We have a contract and we start on September 10th.
September 10th. Okay.
Is the contract with them specific about any specific services or?
Yeah, so it's to examine declining enrollment and the impact of it and strategies moving forward from from their objective point of view. We'll work with all groups. We'll start with our cabinet group, but we'll be bringing that information to the board for you to weigh in as well.
If we have some influence, I agree with Cal. I think having those county numbers
Yeah.
would help us a lot too, and maybe, yeah,
That demographic study will include that. Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm curious too, you said that we declined by about 20%.
Oh,
that-
so from 2019-20, we were over 1,900 students. This year, we're under 1,500. So let's just use broad numbers. We've gone from 1,900 to 1,500. That's 20% over the last 5 years.
I just was wondering if that percent is, how that compares to our neighbors.
I would say we've been hit as hard, probably the hardest of anybody. Pajaro may be close. I don't have hard numbers for you, but I know Pajaro's lost thousands of kids,
Yeah.
which sound harsher and bigger in raw numbers.
They're huge.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but they're still in the 15% range. I would guess.
Oh, in the 15.
Yeah.
But student services is gonna include things like that, where we can compare and just to try to get a better picture of what our district looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can give you some of that data too. I can tell you if you had a ranking, we'd be hit the hardest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd probably be us and Live Oak. I would imagine right off the bat.
I think when you look at housing costs and housing availability, that's probably a pretty big factor in it too, so.
we're a pretty big district. It's not just Capitola. I agree
Oh, for
with you,
sure.
but,
Yeah.
I think that everywhere has their Beverly Hills and their less, more affordable areas.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm trying to put an optimistic
Yes.
spin at least on some of the new housing developments that are coming about based on,
Yes.
state mandates, so.
So
If we can
Thank you
show
for
up, if we can show up at those open houses, like with signs and boom
Yes.
boxes and do little presentations.
I'll go with you.
To let people thank you, yeah,
I'm gonna be struggling, because one sign's gonna be like, this is for our teachers, the other sign's gonna be, this is for our families.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Well,
We'll
so many
divide it
teachers also,
Right, and
Have
that's
families,
the
there we
perfect
go.
balance,
There
the
we
teachers
go.
with kids. Yeah.
I thank you for doing this, Scott, because
Yeah,
this is something I've been curious about for a while, and I think I didn't quite even know exactly what I wanted or how to ask for it, but this is really, really helpful, and it's different than what my assumption would have been. I just always I always thought like, well, people are going to private schools, and certainly knowing that people are moving away, but I think it's helpful to see that a great number of them are going to publics, and the charters they're going to are also, publicly
Yeah, yeah.
funded charters.
Right.
And I love the idea of as much as possible, finding out a little more information if that's possible. And then I'd love to know also, did these families talk to their administrators, their teachers, et cetera, about whatever the issue was? Like if they truly did leave because, oh, I might have another option or a program that's a better fit. I'm always curious, like, did you have an opportunity to try to get those needs met here, or did you see something different and go for it?
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I don't have anything on me.
All right, thank you for that. And these are great.
Yeah,
thanks
really
for that.
helpful.
Yeah. All right, item 7C, board policy around student records.
So right off the bat, you have a hard copy of the memo. My apologies for the wrong memo, being in the board docket. And so the real change on this is very specific. So the board policy is 5125, and it's about student records. And as you can see from the updated memo, from the correct memo, that it's about confidentiality of records and everything. And when you get to the actual change to the actual board policy, it's singular, right? So the board policy covers a lot, but in these changes, we always try to hone in on what's the change. And so, as is the want of the board, we included at the very top the SUESD governing board so that it's not generic. So we got that part. And then the one additional paragraph, so no changes to any of the existing language, but a new paragraph being recommended by CSBA that the district shall not collect or solicit social security numbers or the last 4 digits of social security numbers of students or the parents and guardians unless otherwise required or allowed to do by state or federal law. So just keeping up with current laws and regulations on student records.
Any questions or comments from the board? Is the social security number required with the? It used to be called the free lunch application. Okay.
We're doing that differently now anyway. Maybe
Okay,
that might be an item we want to update the board on there. So there's been some positive movement
Okay.
with that, so.
all right, just a presentation item, so there's nothing else, anything on email?
Nothing on email.
All right. All right, moving on to action items,
Could we address the item from consent? Do you want to do that now? Or do you want to do it at
is
the
it
very
a
end?
presentation? Is it, yes, it
No,
would.
it was, I mean, it's
Or is it?
it's just a discussion. So, I mean, we can
It's
do it
just-
as an action since it was in consent. Or if you want it to come back,
I will, yeah, can we make it a discussion?
put it in discussion.
So
So we
right
should
now.
do it now.
Yeah. All right, so,
Are we not considering approving it? Because if we were considering, like, if it were in consent, we'd be,
Yes.
Approving and
yeah,
adopting
right.
it.
That's all. I just wanted to be
Oh.
clear on what the desire was.
I think it's usually an action item if it was in the consent agenda, because,
It is, yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
And the good part about that is if you choose not to take action, that's okay too, but it gives you the opportunity to take action.
okay,
So we'll do it at the very end of the meeting.
okay,
All right, just wanted to be clear.
all right, thanks.
Yep.
So moving on to item 8A, consider adopting a resolution for the best value procedures and guidelines.
Okay, so for this item, I have Jim Dupree here. You all know Jim. And he can give us some more backstory on this. So what this is really the lease back. So anytime we get into construction on major projects like over $2 million or so forth, it's always a good idea for a district to have this in place, which means when it comes to contracting with the contractors, instead of, doing our bidding process where we have to select the lowest bidder, we enter into a contract, we still get bids, sealed bids and so forth, but we have more of an opportunity to look into their qualifications, look at resumes, look at a bunch of other items that pertains to that contractor. So it does allow the district to do more of a due diligence on our end because the project is so big. This is the same thing that we did in 2016 when we did all of our bond work. So it's basically standard practice and so forth. So this would be good for the field and when we go out for bond as well. And I can let Jim, if you have any questions or if you'd like to add to anything.
Covered it well. It sounds very tricky. It's a lot of, the legal document is thick.
Yeah.
And you actually have to sign leases. That's where you can get in trouble if you don't actually have leases, but that's all covered. And it does give the district a lot of flexibility. It's more like instead of taking a set of plans, you do pre-qualify, no matter how you do it, you do pre-qualify contractors to make sure they have the bonding capacity and things like that to bid on a project of this size. But with leaseback, it's more of an interview situation where a group of people, quite often a board member is involved in those interviews, where you ask them a large amount of questions about their ability to get everybody on site. What have you done that's close to this before? The contractors actually go to quite more lengths for this than they do for just a design build type of thing. So they'll bring a big team, make a really big and you can really get a feel for how they'll be able to handle a job of some greater size. We will, when the bond passes, we will have multiple fields that we plan on doing right away. Those are going to be some of our kickoff, we're hoping those are going to be our kickoff plans. We'd like to be able to bundle those fields to make them one big project, to make it even more lucrative for a big contractor that can handle that. And so, we're looking at $6 to $10 million worth of work. So you really want to interview, you want to get a good partner, and that's what leaseback gives you the opportunity to do.
All right,
Okay.
questions from the board?
Hey, Jim.
Hi, see you again.
Good to see you too. Two things, time and money. Would this extend the time frame? How long does the interview process take? What are we looking at in terms of if we add this, what's the extra time?
Yeah, there shouldn't be any extra time. You have to advertise for contractors just like you advertise for bids. There may be a little extra time because you do have to set up the interviews in person. But that's why you have, me, and you have a really good architect construction manager that will reach out to construct the contractors that they know, that they worked with before, and encourage them to get a packet together and get it together. We give them deadlines. Usually the decision is made once you've had all of the people come make their presentations. It's usually a pretty quick decision after that. It's usually pretty clear. It's kind of like a job interview. When you're done, you kind of know who you want to take. So it doesn't add a lot of time. Some people believe that it is more expensive, but the fact that you do not have to pick the lowest bid. And that's a good thing in some cases. If the bids are really close and you see one contractor really fits the bill and the other one that might be a little lower, they may not have the footing that you like. Well, then, yes, you're gonna pick somebody a little higher bid, but if you're gonna get a better change, you're gonna get a better outcome, chances are you'll get many to zero change orders, which, you know, can save you a lot of money and things like that. So maybe a little bit of time delay, but certainly in a time delay in a time frame where we won't be doing anything anyway. The architect will come up with what they call a bid set of plans that will not have a DSA stamp on them. And you can go to bid with a bid set. So while DSA is doing their thing, taking months and months to give you that stamp, you can go to bid and pick your contractor and do all that stuff. And then when the DSA stamp comes back, then the contractor and the district will work together to balance out that final price.
What does DSA mean and what does lease back mean?
So DSA is the Division of State Architect. They have to approve all of our plans. Lease back is a style of delivering construction jobs to school districts. There are a handful of different ways to deliver these projects.
Are there more questions from the board?
Just one, if we don't do the typical lowest bid, how do you protect against collusion?
That's why you have a document that is this, that's where these I got into trouble. About 10, 12 years ago, there was a district in Fresno. I don't know which district, but it was a district in Fresno that there was collusion between the superintendent and his buddy, the guy who owned the construction. They weren't even doing leases. They were just saying, we're doing lease back here, have a job. So you protect yourself by that, by having the documents all in order, having all your T's crossed, your I's dotted, that keeps you clear from collusion.
Thank you, Jim.
Is this new for this district?
No, when we passed our bond in 2016, it's gonna be these bonds will be different. It was really a very short list of projects since 2016. We built classrooms. So for the building of the classrooms, for the actual envelope, we went out for lease back with one big contractor. That was Jeff Lucchetti, JLC. But then there's other things that have to be done, such as earthwork, concrete, plumb underground work. All of those lesser dollar item things, we did much more in a much more traditional design, bid, build type of a contract. So when we get to the final list, we're going to do an update on master planning in a few weeks. So you'll get a quick update of where we are. And when we get to the end, we'll have a laundry list at each site of jobs that need to be done. When we get to the smaller items, adding a couple of restrooms for a TK classrooms, those types of things, then that'll probably be more classic. Here's the plans. So X amount of contractors, give us a price. Not everything will be done lease back. Opal Cliffs was built with lease back.
And then approving this is kind of project specific?
Project, yes. In a lot of cases, school districts will stay small. So let's say there's modernization that needs to be done at school X. And that's, let's say that's a $4 million job. They may do just that job and do lease back for that. We take we learned a lot from our last bond, and we take a little different look where we think that if we have modernization at 4 schools, we're going to try to combine all those as one big job. It makes it much more enticing to a contractor to know that they'll have that kind of work, that they're going to be here for a long time, that they'll get here, they'll stay here, they can keep people going. And then It sounds weird, but you're spending your money faster, which you get much more bang for your buck because you don't have to worry about escalation. So you know, if you wait 5 years from now before you spend some of this bond money, prices aren't going down, I don't think.
Yeah.
So your dollar's not worth as much. And that'll be part of our update, that we'll look at that financial end of things.
I don't know. I've been listening to the DMC.
It's all-
According to Kamala.
Well, you know, wouldn't that be great?
Absolutely.
I would be thrilled with that.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
No, I had some before, but it's all coming back to
Yeah.
me from last time. So
Yeah.
now, no, you've answered, you've answered them.
I understand. This is going back to me.
All right,
All right.
Jim?
You're welcome.
Thank you.
thanks, Jim.
Well said.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Are there any questions from the audience?
I do. Don't all bonds have a lot of interest that is paid upon the bonds? And the other question is, as I see a lot of school modernization, there's more Wi-Fi or broadband, which the evidence shows is very damaging health-wise. Do all these plans include upgrade on
So
broadband?
to answer your first question, there is some income on bond money, because once you sell your bond, then you get this influx of cash. And that goes to the bank, and you do make a little bit of money, but on your bond, but negligible. We are not in the minutia of that plans yet for things like Wi-Fi and those types of things. But unfortunately for you, ma'am, that's the direction the district is going. That's the way that, you know, that's what, you know, it's.
That is unfortunate, because it's damaging.
Yeah, I understand, I understand, and I appreciate your commitment to this issue. Unfortunately, I think the district is going to continue to move in that direction. Because many of us believe it's better for education, it's better for kids to be able to get that information to them in many different ways.
It's all right, and there's nothing on email. Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you. This is a resolution, so can we have a roll call? Oh, sorry. Is there a motion? And then we'll do a roll call.
We're turning.
Go ahead.
Okay, I will make the motion to adopt the resolution for best value procedures and guidelines.
All right. And then
I'll second.
All right. And it's a resolution, so.
Trustee Edmondson,
Aye.
trustee Dickinson,
Aye.
trustee Donnelly,
Aye.
trustee Jackson Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Gray.
Aye. All right, the resolution passes. Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Ducks in a row.
All right, item 8B,
That's off our fields.
updates from the California dashboard.
Okay, so thank you. This is an item that every school district across the state of California is bringing back to their board of trustees. And that's because sometimes in the state of California, there is a law that changes between the passage of one plan and what the California legislature would like to see in terms of what is in those plans. And so that is this case. And so in the summer this year, the school board was so kind to approve our LCAP and our local indicator report. And the local indicator report is a self-assessment of how a district does, and every school district does one, to say, do we have the right materials? Do we have quality instruction? Do we have the right quality teachers? And do those match the 8 indicators that are associated with the state of California's priorities? And so the legislature decided that they wanted more information about our staff. And they have created a new report with new terminology associated with that report that attempts to describe the type of full-time educator equivalencies that we have in each of our school systems. And so the board is maybe moderately familiar because we tried to do a little bit of a Friday update on, you know, kind of what some of those terms meant and why they might have been selected. We're not sure. but they are an attempt to describe what kind of teachers and the qualifications that they have. And so in this request for approval, there is only one update, and that is to the table that was created by the CDE and is available to the public. So it's not information that we're publishing outside of what the community already couldn't see. It's just described in a different way. And so the table that I'm presenting to the board tonight basically is a table that shows all of our school sites, the total teaching FTE, which is the full-time equivalency position, and in what category those teachers are. Below that, there's some report totals that talk about our school district, our county, and what is statewide. If the board approves this change, which is the simple addition of this new calculation and table, I will upload it to the California dashboard online system, and it will be made more public. What is public now that looks different from this is just how many staff do we have. So I'm presenting this to you as a matter of necessity, but also to answer any questions that you have that I can answer. I can't answer why they changed the terminology. I can't answer why terminology was selected to describe teachers. But it is important to note that, you know, every one of our teachers is a legally assigned staff member to the position that they're in. And the term ineffective as used by the state of California does not mean that we've evaluated them to be ineffective teachers. That's not what that means.
So do we have a say in this, or do we get to say, oh, this is confusing? So
well, it's going to be, it's the state of California doesn't give you a choice, right? They say you have to publish it and you have to add it. And what they also say is not only did you do it before and it was approved by your school board, but you have to do it this new way and your school board has to approve it again.
Okay, so we don't have a say.
I mean, we could write to our legislators.
Yeah.
But I hate putting something out that does. I mean, it says 23% of the teachers at Main Street are ineffective. For a layman who's looking at this, I mean, that's a terrible perception. If I'm looking to move into the district, you know, and I look this up and I see 23% of the Main Street teachers are ineffective, I don't know what that means. I can only assume that,
Right.
and if I'm playing devil's advocate, somebody moving into the district, you know, if they don't know what that means, it's, gosh, wow, that's terrible, you know, a quarter of the teachers are ineffective, they're bad teachers.
Well, I would say, yes, that's our concern as well. The other side of it is that every school district's publishing the same table.
Right.
Ineffective.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's.
Yeah, but it's not like you look at Opal Cliffs and the Gardens in SoCal Elementary and those are all zeros, you know, so I mean, and I'm not just clearly pointing out, I mean, it's a huge number for Main Street while the other schools are zero.
It gives no context, right?
Yeah.
Like an example that I always use is that we've had elementary teachers who have a great knack for teaching math and decide to become math teachers at New Brighton, for example. Well, during that time where they're going back to get their single subject credential, they would have fallen into that category. During that time, they're some of our best teachers, right? Like that's just a real, and so I guess that's a long way to say preaching to the converted. We agree. We have no idea why they chose this language.
Can we say in order to publish it, it has to have like, I mean, I see it does kind of at the top where it says report glossary. I'm assuming that if you clicked on one of those, you'd actually find out what ineffective actually means.
Yeah, you can. The
Asterisk it or.
yeah, I mean, it's not there. Basically, everything's asterisked in this situation. The one thing that I can say is, and this is like the silver lining, right? That not the public necessarily doesn't understand, but we know to be true. And that is that in a district like ours, we're a small district. And there are many teachers that do more than one thing, right? Like if we ask a teacher that's like a multiple subject teacher, can you also teach a section of math? They do, and we qualify them to do that, right? And so you know, there's some beauty that is part of a school district where you have teachers that are so willing to earn additional credentials or earn additional certifications to be able to teach in a district that needs them to do so, when it's so very hard to recruit people to work inside your district for a variety of reasons.
Right.
So, you know, the inside truth is different than the outside truth. So I know that's not a true silver lining for the public's maybe perspective. The good news for us is that all of the indicator information that we have there is valid, and it does show that there are some really great things that are happening that I think are evidenced. And we will continue to work with our legislators. This board knows I work pretty heavily on advocacy for education, and this is definitely not our first chat about this. So
If we vote no, what happens?
well, I mean, it doesn't, the state of California doesn't care.
Right, yeah. I would think of this more as you are aware that
Yeah.
this data will be published.
Yes.
Not what you think is a swell idea.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's just like Ted said, it doesn't make a difference.
No, but it is,
Yes.
but
Oh,
it is,
no,
but
yeah.
it, but it is.
No, right?
What it does do is if it's not approved, then we do find ourselves out of compliance with the
Right,
state of California as a district. And that does negatively impact us, which we don't want to have happen.
Robert.
No, and you know, and I look
No,
at
I-
it, I look
I know
at
what
it
you're
from the
saying,
other
yeah.
end too, because it's also tells a great story, because it does show that the Gardens has 0% ineffective teachers, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Well, and
I
also
don't know.
too, just remember that
there's a
this
silver lining, right?
this year is not the year that they actually show the table data from, like it can never be in real time. So they're always working in arrears.
And someone has to, I mean, click through a
Yeah.
fair amount to actually get to this table, right? I mean, it would take like your average person, I think, looking to see like, oh, what are my local schools like? They're gonna look at that pretty page with the
That's right.
confusing indicators dials, with the dials with the red and the green. I mean, so at least it sounds like it's not front and center, but yeah, if there's any way that we can help with any kind of advocacy around, again, like change your language, my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are districts that are not operating in the way that we are. And I think it was a real attempt to deal with that.
Yeah.
I do think the intention was really good. And with every good intention, there's unintended consequences that,
Yeah.
you know, that come about. This is, I believe, one of them.
We were given definitions of what ineffective means.
Mhm.
Is that part of where if you click, you'd find that?
Yeah.
Or can we put that next to the numbers?
You know,
Website?
if I go into where I like upload, there's a little bit of information that I can provide, not a lot. There's just a couple of lines right there where I have a little bit more liberty is in our general comment at the beginning, which is the summary, which I can include, you know, some links and some other subject matter that might make looking at that more palatable. So.
And this is within the LCAP?
Within the local indicators on the California dashboard. So the LCAP is like all of our goals and actions and all that. And we do report on the local indicators within the LCAP, and that's always been our practice. But there's another set of documents that are virtual documents, if you will, that the state of California under the CDE keep, and they measure your progress on things every year. And so they're not separate necessarily, but the indicators themselves run in a different operating system. And that's where this legislation is happening.
And then, so just to like give myself an example. So for example, one reason why a teacher would be ineffective is that they hold a teaching credential, but they don't possess a permit for what they're teaching. So for example, if I was a math teacher and I had 4 sections of math, but I had 1 section of, I don't know, something else, library, music,
Spanish.
I would be counted as ineffective.
Yeah.
Even though the majority of what I'm doing is within my subject credential.
Yes.
Okay.
And we do have that.
Yeah.
I mean, and New Brighton is a really good example of that. We do have amazing teachers, you know, who are their math credentialed, and they're teaching in an elective that's out of that lane.
Yeah.
Saw Gordon Barrett, the SDC teacher today teaching Spanish. He picked up a .2 Spanish. He was teaching amazing. I understood Spanish.
Right.
Yeah, the ineffective term is just.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
I agree. It's people are, very few people are gonna see it, so.
Yeah.
So my request is that you approve it.
At least it's not no child left behind.
There you go.
That was nutty.
Yeah.
Remember those days.
All right, may I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the updates on the California School Dashboard, local indicator self-reflection tool.
All right, a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, so moving on to our last item, item 4I, the governance calendar. If you need to jump to it on your docket, it's page 58.
It's lovely having a docket under 100 pages, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, we always appreciate all of the pages. But compared to our June 300 pagers.
Yeah.
For sure. So the board governance calendar is something that I inherited when I came. And I think it had been pretty recent and an effort to improve community awareness of board happenings and just community involvement and transparency. CSBA has a very similar document. I think it was kind of adapted from, and I was really glad to inherit it when I came. I thought, oh, this makes a lot of sense that although individual items pop up throughout the year that we can't predict, that we need to put on the board agenda, what are the things that we know are going to happen? Big picture items. We know every June the LCAP's going to come. Let's put that on there so that somebody who's looking from the public can see not just one board meeting to the next, one meeting at a time, one agenda at a time, but kind of this broad picture. What are some of the things going to be covered? And so, if I was really interested in the school safety plan, I would kind of look at this and know a meeting that I could target to come. So that was, I believe, Amanda was there at the time that this was brought on board. So I think that was kind of the mindset for bringing this on. And then we've tweaked it over the years just to kind of refine it and, add a little bit of a format to it that makes it stand out from the items that generally come from the soup's office, from business, from ed services. And have kept most of it intact over the years. We've added a few things as we've gone. This was the first year that I thought, this is getting routine enough now that I'll put it into consent, but I'm glad it was, pulled out for further discussion so we can see if we want this document to serve a different purpose, maybe.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments? Maybe I'll start since I pulled it. So I have two questions, and it is helpful for me to know that I think the point of this document, I see it on our website, but it's that a community member or parent could see it and kind of, that's the goal of the document.
Yeah.
Okay, so two questions. One is, in the past, we've had different departments give presentations, like nutrition services or student services or technology.
Right.
Would we ever put those on this kind of a document?
So I think
January is child nutrition services presentation.
in IT is
February.
IT is February, and yeah, CNS is January.
And then maintenance is October.
Yep.
Okay,
And that was one of the only things I added this time with the maintenance thing, because I remember one of you, I think it was Amanda, but somebody asked, like, we need to hear again about all the great projects maintenance is doing. And so we wanted to get that pretty close to over the summer. So that's one of the few things that is different on here, but I thought it wasn't really super substantive in nature, and that was my rationale for consent.
And then the student services presentation?
Yeah,
That's a
so
good one.
that is a good one, and I'd be glad to add that on. And one of the things we always say at the top of this is a live living document, so that if we think of something like that, we don't have to bring it back to the board every single time for those kind of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agreed for 100% for that.
Okay. And then the second item that I had was, I was remembering our discussion about the community forum. It was pretty rich. The district put in a lot of effort, getting the word out, preparing the whole space, coming up with, interesting presentations. But then our turnout was so low, and we had a discussion questioning if this was an effective use of our energies. And I see it here, so I wanted to have that discussion of are we open to looking into changing that? Are we committed to the community forum if it's on this document and we approve it? To me, it seems like not as much of a discussion. That was why I wanted to pull this.
So great question. I would say that's a living document. So this is nothing here is like written in stone. There's a few things like budget and LCAP have to come in June, but everything else is, to our discretion. And then I think one of the ideas, and again, this is something I have to give credit where credit's due. I inherited this kind of concept. And so the putting it in October of considering approval of the community forum agenda, I think gives the board an opportunity to weigh in well in advance. Should we do it? What should it look like? What do we want to see for improvements? And so that when it comes in February, it just doesn't come overnight to you. The board has a lot of time in advance to give staff input on what they'd like to see that night.
I guess the terminology forum makes me think of the what we created. So it limits if we were gonna investigate, should we do it differently? That word, that was what I was thinking. I could be totally off. I love that this is a living document. I'm interested in investigating other opportunities to communicate the LCAP and hear about from families how their experience of our district is. Any thoughts about that?
So, I mean, I do see it as a living document and see that we could make changes. And we could make a change now that says, consider approving community forum format and agenda. That gives us a little bit more leeway to having it not be the same type of forum, but forum is still a pretty broad enough word that because we're gonna want to do something with the community.
Community collaboration, is it the word? And I understand kind of what you're saying, but maybe we make it more inclusive, like. Well, forum is still a discussion, I mean.
Yeah, it could be community event.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That
event
can be
is
our-
very broad.
Collaboration, yeah, something, partnership.
I like your suggestion of, they're all good suggestions, but I like the idea of just that we're considering approving format, format/agenda, format and agenda. I mean, just so that it's kind of clear that when we get together and discuss this again in October, it still is a little bit at the brainstorming stage and not so much like, this is the format, like the room is booked, the invitations already went out. We've already got 3 ads in the newspaper. So is it going to be, line item A, B, C? So, I mean, I like that. I think that gives us, I don't know, it's a good like reminder for us that every year we do have that opportunity to tweak it. Does that work for you guys?
Can I just make one comment
sure.
too? Just because I know that one of you made a comment about this being a living document. And that's especially an important note because there are many times when some of the reports that we have to share, legally their timelines change. And so we couldn't stick to this necessarily anyway, given some of those conditions that we know are true with a lot of the reports that we have to bring to the board.
The other thing that might be a nice, way to make it seem like it's not gonna be exactly the same thing is maybe we don't wanna say at NBMS PAC. Because maybe it's gonna look different and it's not gonna be there. So maybe we just have the February one say community forum, exact date TBD. And with those two kind of small word changes, it makes it very clear that there's lots of room to be shaping that.
I can have just 2 cents, maybe just a penny's worth on that. So I totally get like the academic part of that.
Yeah.
Booking the pack and all that goes with it to make sure it's not stepping over somebody else's event or something. It's like something like we want this community event, whatever it shall be called, like to make sure it doesn't, well, because it wasn't on anywhere. Like, so I think a happy medium can be community event, probably. In the NBMS pack, just so that it's really clear that we're gonna have something there and just from the very practical scheduling part. So I'll try to find some way to capture the medium ground on that.
I agree with you too. I think especially with enrollment last year was a little bit lower than the previous year, having a place and letting somebody put it on their calendar
Mhm.
with a location, I think could have some value to it too. If families plan far out vacations and the things like that, maybe this is something they would put on their calendar. And I think, yeah, I like all the ideas. I think it's important to be able to reach all the diverse micro communities
Mhm.
in our district as well. Whether it's a language issue or how you send out emails or something along those lines. So I see how this, I like the fact, and I love that you pulled this out, Callie. It's a great idea because I think we need to evolve. And I think as we progress into the future and technology and everything else, I think we need to revisit how we do things and always be changing, always be evolving and be current.
So I hear that idea about keeping that placeholder for saving the PAC.
Mhm.
But for example, here's a crazy idea. On a night when a ton of parents are going, we have something that there could be multiple ways to connect with more parents and families. Perhaps it's like you're saying, the wording in October.
Make sure the word format gets in there was an emphasis point that I heard.
Yeah. I just want to give us the most creativity in reimagining this event because it's awesome. I want everyone to know about the LCAP. I want to hear what they have to say, and I want a lot of people there. So how do we do that? That's where I'm coming from. And I feel like the more that it's pinched in, the more it feels like that old thing. So I'm fine with leaving that because I totally hear you that it's hard to book. Tons of things happen at New Brighton in the PAC. But I'm very interested in how do we spark that creativity for that next step of engaging people in these important things that we do.
And I also don't know how much this calendar affects actually scheduling the PAC, right? Wouldn't we need, like, scheduling the PAC is not off of this.
You're right. We still could. It's something about having it where it's definitive, just gives a little bit greater peace of mind. So, I mean, I won't get lost in this particular argument. If we want the date off of there, I'll take it off. I'll be honest, it makes me feel more at ease if it's solidly booked.
I think we should still book the PAC.
Yeah.
I think it's more of how we reflect it on here.
Yeah.
It gives us, because I have a radical idea that maybe we do it more than once. Maybe we do a Santa Cruz Gardens location, and obviously we'd have to scale down what we do. And I don't think this is the right time for us to be planning what that can be for.
Right.
But I totally hear you, Kelly, that there might be some radically new ideas that this doesn't fully reflect. And this document doesn't need to fully reflect them right now.
Yeah. Right.
And there are lots of other family engagement opportunities. This had just always kind of been the districts, right?
Yeah.
School does a lot of family engagement. And I'm a parent, that's gonna be the first thing my kids' school's having something, I'm probably gonna go. This had been the idea of this has been the district's way to reach out to the community and break down barriers as a district. So yes, school events for sure, and you're gonna typically have an easier draw to a parent's, when it's their kid's school, for sure. And those things have happened, will continue to happen. This had been, like I said, the district's community event.
So in moving forward, what are we putting on the table? Are we considering adding language? Are we considering approving this and trusting that it's a living document? Are we adding another?
Can I paraphrase and see if I got it
Yes,
right? So
yes.
one is make sure, for sure, get the word format in that October, consider approving community forum format and agenda. On the February community forum, just finding some way, to make that not seem so locked in. It could be district community event, a tentative location, New Brighton PAC, something like that. So it doesn't feel quite so locked in. And then to add the student services presentation. And that would go in the yellow since student services follows under my department.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, that captures it for me. Yeah, that worked. I think that's great. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for that flexibility, and thank you everybody for your discussion and your ideas. Sure. That is exciting. All right, can I make a motion?
Yes.
I move that we approve the governance calendar with the changes the superintendent suggested. Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much for that. Correspondence, you can always relay that. Future agenda items. You can also email me. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Right, thank you. We are adjourned.
You.
Everybody takes off one quick question.
Superhero goes on all of our placards.